It's cover up after cover up with the Trump regime. But what else do you expect when all they do is crime and lie? They need to cover up for the last cover up. So you've got the Epstein cover up. You've got them covering up what actually went down with the airstrikes in Iran. We're learning that 2 of the facilities were not really even badly damaged. A new NBC News report out. They'll be able to have nuclear weapons in no time if they want to. Also, Donald Trump's cover up over his health. He's apparently been diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency following leg swelling, or that's what they're claiming. People saw his ankles swelling. They saw him wearing makeup on his hand. And Caroline Levitt tried to say, well, that's just because he shakes a lot of hands and he's taking aspirin. Okay, Caroline Levitt, we're going to talk about all of that and more here on this episode of the Midas Touch Podcast. Let's bring in Brett and Jordy. You got Donald Trump and this regime really on the ropes when it comes to Epstein, but it's really kind of exposed the dark past of Trump, but the underbelly of this whole regime built on a mountain of lies, Brett and Jordy.
Well said. And you notice when Donald Trump is caught in these lies, he then brings up like every hoax he ever does. And to me, that's just affirmation that all those other stories are true. He'll go like, oh, it's the Russia, the Ukraine call. I'm like, yeah, you did all that stuff. So like the fact that you're now looping in this Epstein story with that, it's actually making me even more suspicious. And I got to say, Trump's reaction to all of this has been absolutely wild. I mean, say all the things that you say about Donald Trump. The one thing that I actually think the guy is good at is reading his base, understanding his base, and knowing how to manipulate them in the right ways. But what I've seen from him in the past few days has been such a misstep, and that is saying it lightly. He is basically saying F you to his base. I mean, he literally called them weaklings yesterday. He called them stupid. And this is just the most ridiculous part of the cover-up. The fact that he is actually yelling at his own base in this situation. They are getting confused. They're trying their best to try to figure out, how do we justify liking Donald Trump after this? I've seen a lot of them be like, okay, that's it. I am out. It is so fascinating that this is the story that is finally kind of tearing apart this movement, that is collapsing this house of cards. But when you think about it, it does make sense because remember, we've been reporting on this at Midas Touch now, I think since day 1 of Midas Touch. We've been on this story, maybe a video a day about this topic. But remember, Donald Trump started his entire presidential run. Obviously you could go back to the Obama birth certificate stuff, but what was the big thing of Trump in 2016? The big stories back then, it was QAnon. It was the idea that there are these elite pedophile rings and it's all run by Democrats and Trump was going to come into power and Trump was going to have mass executions of his political opponents. It sounds pretty sick, right? That's what Trump ran on. And this Epstein story has been seeded in that. This Epstein story happens to be a true story with a lot of confirmed facts about rings like this with him. And now it's come home to roost because Donald Trump was Epstein's best friend. And now he's trying to cover it up. And this is such a kind of origin story of this movement that it's breaking them apart because this movement really came together under this whole QAnon thing. And this is kind of, related to that. I don't want to pretend that this is in any way a conspiracy theory because this is actually a real part of all that, not the conspiracy stuff they were spreading, but it's tearing them apart because it's so tied to what they thought this movement was about from the beginning. It's fascinating to watch. We're going to break it all down and why Trump is also terrified right now. But first, let me toss it over to Jordy. Jordy, what's the latest?
Hey, let me just say this. A lot of people out there, they like to paint Trump as this great marketer, this great messenger. This was a guy born halfway between third base and home plate who's had every red carpet rolled out for him. So now seeing him actually have to dig his way out of something where even his own MAGA fandom base is turning against him. This is the first time he's kind of ever been on, well, maybe the second time he's been on an island. And he's trying to peel his way out bit by bit. And he is grasping for everything. We mentioned it last week. What are they trying to do? They're trying to divert the story to Biden's autopen. Sorry, said this on Monday. Doesn't have the same bite to it there, Donnie, as Epstein's Island, your BFF. When you Google the guy's name, everyone, please just take a second. Google Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein. Look at how many photos exist. Now do me a favor. Google Joe Biden, Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, look, no photos. You know what I mean? So when you're looking at Donald Trump right now, he is a guy that is on the ropes. And this is, quite frankly, this is collapsing the MAGA base before our eyes, Ben.
Look, and beyond the photos, I've said it like this before. About 10% of the Epstein files have been released to date. About 90% haven't. The 10% come from civil, criminal, administrative, and other actions. Donald Trump's name appears over and over again. He's on the flight logs at least 7 times, and only a small portion of the flight logs have been produced. He's on the depositions with Epstein telling sex trafficking victims he's going to bring them to Trump's casinos in Atlantic City. Trump is quoted as saying in 2002, Epstein is a great guy. He likes beautiful women. Many of them are on the younger side. Donald Trump is Doe 174. You want to know how I know there's an Epstein list? If there's a 174, there's a 173 and a 175. That's the way lists work. Doe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's a Doe because the information about him could be harmful to his reputation, and that information was not released in connection with the civil cases against Epstein. But one of the ways you would find out some of the stuff that Trump was involved in with Epstein is you would say, turn over all the Doe 174 files. You can go through all of these connections, like in the Ghislaine Maxwell sex trafficking case. Now a woman who was at the time 14 years old, identified as Jane Doe, said when she was 14 years old, she was brought by Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein to meet Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Let's get that grand jury testimony, bring that to light. Mar-a-Lago was used as a crime scene. I mean, it was one of the places where the sex trafficking took place. And you go, oh, Ben, you got to be careful what you say. I'm just telling you the facts. One of the MOs of Jeffrey Epstein, he would prey on destitute girls, underage girls. Donald Trump would give them jobs at the spa in Mar-a-Lago. One of those girls, Virginia Giuffre, who has since died by suicide, she was a homeless 17-year-old girl, got a job as the towel girl at Donald Trump's spa. And then Ghislaine Maxwell would walk down the block to the spa and say, hey, I see you like you're working at this spa. I want to introduce you to a rich guy I know. His name is Jeffrey Epstein, and he likes massages. And, you know, you may be able to travel the world with him as part of a career doing massages. You want to meet Epstein? Then they would sex traffic Virginia Giuffre. That's what happened. I mean, those are facts. Some of the early victims would come out and say, we would go to Epstein's office building. And when I went to Epstein's office building, Trump was there. Epstein would say to me, hey, or tell Donald, she's not for you. Yours is in the other room. And then I would watch Donald Trump go into the other room. I mean, this stuff predated even the criminal charges against Epstein, people saying these things. And then it became the criminal charges, which ultimately Donald Trump's labor secretary, Alex Acosta, who previously in 2007, 2008 was the United States attorney for the Southern District of Florida, gave Epstein a non-prosecution agreement and said, we won't do anything at the federal level. We'll defer to the state. And guess who the state was? Eventually, it was Donald Trump's current attorney general, Pam Bondi, was the attorney general of Florida. And they deep sixed it. They also gave Epstein a co-conspirator non-prosecution agreement saying that you can't go after Epstein's co-conspirators either. And the way it was framed in the non-prosecution agreement is in any court in the United States. Ultimately, the Southern District of New York federal judges said, we're not going to honor a deal entered into in the Southern District of Florida. A Southern District of Florida deal can't bind other district courts. That's how Epstein was prosecuted and Ghislaine was prosecuted. But Ghislaine Maxwell's current appeal to the United States Supreme Court is on the basis of, hey, there was this deal, a contract that was entered into. And Ghislaine's family wrote this statement saying Donald Trump makes deals. And if you're a deal maker, the deal was co-conspirators should not get prosecuted. And Ghislaine was identified as a co-conspirator, so she shouldn't have been prosecuted. That's what she's arguing to the Supreme Court. And what does Donald Trump do yesterday? He fires the lead prosecutor in the Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein criminal prosecutions. He fired Maureen Comey, James Comey's daughter, who was the lead prosecutor in those cases. At the same time, Donald Trump says that James Comey, Comey's daughter's dad, was the one who created the Epstein hoax. That's what Trump's calling it. I want you to think about the golden ticket Donald Trump just gave to Ghislaine Maxwell. She's going to argue, number one, the president claims this is all one big hoax. But number two, now I'm finding out for the first time from the president of the United States that the lead prosecutor on my case, her dad was the person who created the Epstein hoax. So she didn't disclose that. Now, of course, Comey's daughter, who was the federal prosecutor, she's gonna say this is all made up, and then the judge is going to have to be like, well, I guess Donald Trump's just a liar about everything. But is that where we are in a country, that the way you keep Ghislaine Maxwell behind bars and not a retrial is to say the word of the president of the United States doesn't matter at all? Because just think about the golden ticket he gave her for a retrial. By the way, Donald Trump's chief propagandist, Caroline Levitt, was asked during a press conference earlier in the day, would Donald Trump pardon Ghislaine Maxwell? And Caroline Levitt refused to answer the question. She wouldn't rule out whether Donald Trump would ultimately pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. So I just want you all to see what's going on here. And I wanted to lay it out because behind this, when Donald Trump says this is a hoax, there are real victims. There are hundreds, potentially thousands of girls who were raped and sexually assaulted by elite billionaire men, and this is being covered up, and Donald Trump's out there saying it's a hoax. It's all of this was a hoax. And not only is Donald Trump burying the files and the list, he shut down the investigation. So there was ongoing criminal investigations taking place, and now the co-conspirators who were involved in this, they get a free pass as well. So that's that gives you the full update of what's happening right now. But you know, that is some ghoulish, sick stuff, Brett and Jordy.
And I think that's one of the biggest stories that's really not being reported in that way, Ben. It's that Trump has already let all the people on the so-called list off the hook. Like he let them off, folks. This already happened within the past few weeks, and nobody is speaking about it like that. Like all these people are like, yeah, but you know, Trump was going to get justice for all the victims. No, Trump literally let all those people off the hook. He shut down the investigation. So I think it's important you look into Donald Trump's ties, his documented ties to everybody in this Epstein circle. I mean, you could even look at his administration right now. Ben mentioned Alex Acosta from the previous administration, but you look right now, Donald Trump the other day was speaking about this Epstein issue, and he was going through his lines where he says, I don't understand why this Epstein thing would be of interest to anybody. Only really bad, evil people would care about such a thing, calling his own, base of people evil, and anybody who cares about this evil. And who was standing right next to Donald Trump? Right behind Donald Trump was Howard Lutnick. Howard Lutnick working in the White House right now, the Commerce Secretary. And let me tell you something about Howard Lutnick. Howard Lutnick was Jeffrey Epstein's neighbor in New York City. Not only was Howard Lutnick Jeffrey Epstein's neighbor, just like coincidentally, he bought his townhome in New York City from Jeffrey Epstein. It was Jeffrey Epstein's former property, or it was Jeffrey Epstein's former property. He had actually bought the place from Les Wexner, who is the owner of L Brands, who does Limited, does Bath and Body Works, and also is the guy who bought Victoria's Secret. What was his big thing that Les Wexner did at Victoria's Secret? He started the Victoria's Secret fashion show. He started bringing in the Victoria's Secret models. This was at the time, and Ben has broken this down brilliantly in many pieces. Check it out on the MeidasTouch Podcast. Check it out on our YouTube channel. Check out what Trump has done at the same time period with Trump models, with all these other modeling agencies, with women, and how Epstein and Trump and these people who run these model agencies used these women. Just look through all of Ben's pieces. He's done very deep dives about all of this. Then you look at Pam Bondi, who is the AG in Florida. While a lot of this was going down, all this Epstein stuff was going down. You look at the people who are defending Donald Trump, people who are in Donald Trump's ears, like Alan Dershowitz, who we've spoken about his ties plenty, and he's spoken about his ties to Epstein on his own in quite the detail, and he's been accused of many things in these filings. You put this together, it's very clear that Donald Trump is at the center of this Epstein circle. And so the fact that he and his base use this issue to fan the flames, use this issue to smear his political opponents for so long, knowing that Donald Trump was the central figure in all of this. I mean, how stupid could you be? And how evil could you be to take advantage of all the victims, of everything that happened, in order to try to help yourself politically in this moment when you know how involved you are? I'm happy that this is all coming back to haunt him, but you could tell this is something that Donald Trump wanted to bury long, long ago. If I were being conspiratorial, I would say and this is kind of a conspiracy theory that I believe, that the whole QAnon movement, that the whole Trump push from very early on, the whole save the children, the whole stuff about child sex trafficking, everything like that was just to try to push the blame off of Donald Trump and get people looking in another direction. Because the stuff that we are seeing right now is everything we've seen so far is explosive, and it seems like only more is going to come out.
And that's the really gross part about it too, Brett. You talk about how the Trump administration and the Trump regime had weaponized this, during his election and while he was president the first time. It's so gross to me that just at the heart of it, forget your politics aside, as just a person who lives in the society, a person that lives in the United States, don't you want to know the truth? Don't you want a real investigation into this and really truly understand what's happening? And the guy leading the charge right now, who was BFFs with Jeffrey Epstein, is just nuking the whole thing. Nothing to see here. Nuh-uh, not here, not today, folks. Look over there. Oh, my supporters who believe this, y'all are idiots. That's what he says. That's what he says. It's insane.
Let me show you 2 data points. I could show you a lot more, but I'll keep it recent. And I'll keep it even during the campaign for the presidency, 2004, circa 2004. So Donald Trump gave a speech in front of the Young Republicans in Manhattan. Young Republicans are high school students and college students. So lots of underage kids are there. Donald Trump was giving the speech to these young Republicans of New York, to underage girls and underage boys and college boys and college, men and women. And what does Donald Trump talk about in the speech? He talks about how when he would describe how when you are a rich man and you sexually assault women, they let you do it because you are rich. And that's just the way it is. If you're a rich guy, that is actually locker room talk, that's how men speak in locker rooms, and that's what you're supposed to do. He said that a general told him that was the most brave and courageous thing that the generals ever heard, when Donald Trump called sexually assaulting women locker room talk. He goes, that's the most brave and courageous thing. So Trump tells this story about sexually assaulting women and calling it locker room talk to underage girls and underage boys and college boys and girls at a young Republican event in New York. Watch for yourself. Let's play it.
But I went onto that stage just a few days later, and a general, who's a fantastic general, actually said to me, "Sir, I've been on the battlefield. Men have gone down on my left and on my right. I stood on hills where soldiers were killed. But I believe the bravest thing I've ever seen was the night you went onto that stage with Hillary Clinton after what happened. And then that woman asked you the first question about it. And I said, locker room talk. It's locker room talk. What the hell? What are you talking? Locker room talk." That was not a great...
He's describing when he talked about sexually assaulting women and grabbing them by their genitals, and you get away with it if you are a rich person. That's what he was talking to underage kids at that keynote event that he spoke at. Or how about you go to a speech that Donald Trump gave in 2024 at a high school in Iowa. This is in a high school in Iowa. Donald Trump brings up the topic of getting peed on, getting urinated on by hookers. And he says that I don't really like that. That's called a golden shower, he says. It's called a golden shower. This is what he's talking about in a high school during the campaign. Here, play this clip.
He was with 4 hookers. You think that was good that night to go up and tell my wife, "It's not true, darling. I love you very much"? It's not true. Actually, that one she didn't believe because she said he's a germaphobe. He's not into that, He's not into golden showers, as they say they call that. He's not. I don't like that idea. No, I didn't. I thought that would be a big problem. I was going to have a rough night, but that one she was very good on. She said, no.
So then I'll connect it also to Virginia Giuffre. Remember at the beginning of the show, she was the underage girl who was hired to become a towel girl at Trump's spa. And then Ghislaine brought her over to be sex trafficked by Epstein. Here's Virginia Giuffre in connection with the cases, the criminal and civil cases. Here, I could show you 100 clips of her talking about Mar-a-Lago, but here's one right here.
I was recruited at a very young age from Mar-a-Lago and entrapped in a world that I didn't understand, and I've been fighting that very world to this day, and I won't stop fighting. I will never be silenced until these people are brought to justice.
And she died by suicide, and now the people are not being brought to justice. And I showed you those other clips, as disturbing as they are, Trump in front of the young Republicans and Trump at the high school in Iowa, because I made a very big deal about those clips at the time. And I've always been talking about clips like that. There's hundreds of others that are like that, but those are two exemplars of the situation, which in my own view this was never a political thing to me. Like, I never understood, and I can never understand how the United States of America as a country has come to allow that. What we even heard, yet alone the Epstein cover up, but just him saying those things in a presidential campaign. Has it been that the gamification of politics on corporate news, the social media atmosphere, people living on there? How did we lose touch with a basic reality that is a sick human being saying sick things in the public, that I would not want that human being to be anywhere near my family, anywhere. This guy's not qualified to have a leadership position anywhere. Small business, medium-sized, large business, nonprofit. If somebody in a social club, whether you play cards with people that you know, or fantasy football leagues or whatever, just started saying, hey, I don't like being peed on by hookers, golden shower, locker room talk, grabbing people by their genitals, I would get a restraining order against them. Who is this person? The president of the United States? Sometimes Brett, Jordy, and Midas Mighty, for me, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of organizations and folks who were almost afraid to touch this story for so long because they put this in the conspiracy theory bucket, and I think a lot of it is because of, like what I was saying earlier in the show about the QAnon and that whole movement that came out of it. But the Epstein stuff that we're talking about, and the only things we're talking about, are the undisputed facts of what we have witnessed, what we have seen, what is well documented. We're not veering into any conspiracy theory territory, but there certainly was a conspiracy by these various groups of people to do what Epstein did. And it is very apparent that Donald Trump, in some form or fashion, was very tied into what was going on here. And I think the thing you always have to remember, and we know this because of court cases, we know this because of the many accusers, we know this because of E. Jean Carroll, that Donald Trump is a sexual predator. That is just a fact of life that we all know. And so I think, what do you think that Donald Trump was doing when he was with Jeffrey Epstein? Playing baseball? You think he was they were shooting hoops? I mean, this was a guy who was his best friend. Epstein has said, this is from Michael Wolff, that Donald Trump slept with Melania for the first time on his jet. I mean, these are people who were not only just acquaintances or close or ran in the same kind of circles of high net worth, wealthy people. These were people who were very tied into each other on a very intimate level. They've been described as, Trump and Epstein, as attached at the hip. And you got to look at the comments before people knew about Epstein's crimes that Trump made, like the one that Ben said earlier about him being into very, young women, I think was the term that he used at the time. But you look at that was before anybody knew about Epstein's crimes, all the stuff when Trump starts to say, I actually kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago, and I actually didn't like that guy. That was all after people knew about the crimes. And so I think the stuff before the stuff is public is a lot more telling than the kind of cover that Trump is trying to play after the fact. And this attempt to gaslight the public about it from Donald Trump and from some of those kind of paid influencer supporters is pathetic, and it's not fooling anybody.
Absolutely. I want to remind everybody that one of the ways this network grows is through our memberships here on YouTube. You can see a button on YouTube that says join, and you could become a member. and you could gift memberships to people, unlimited memberships that you can gift. You can access those emojis that you see. And we also have bonus features here as well. I do an exclusive podcast with our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski. It's called Ask the Midas Touch Editor-in-Chief. And we just try to find interesting ways to grow this independent media platform, given that we are certainly outfunded by the right-wing billionaires.
Sorry to jump in there, Ben, but Ask the Editor is quickly becoming one of my favorite segments on the entire network. So definitely grab that membership and check it out because it's well worth it just for that alone. Sorry.
We've got a lot more show we're going to be discussing here. I want to talk about the new findings of what we're learning in Iran. I want to talk about the fact that the Patriot missiles that Donald Trump said he was going to Ukraine is, I'm not sure that was an accurate statement that was being made by Donald Trump. We'll break that down. I want to talk about Trump's health cover-up and more. I want to take our first quick break of the show. We will be right back.
Saturday, a special edition of The Best People. Nicole Wallace is joined by the hosts of the MeidasTouch Podcast for a compelling conversation.
Speaking truthfully on these issues, to me, that's the Midas way.
Saturday at 4 on MSNBC.
So you ever wake up and feel like your body just hit the snooze button on life? Yeah, same. Honestly, aging sneaks up on you in some wild ways. Whether it's a night out or a good workout, I just don't bounce back the way that I used to. One day you're full of energy, the next you're Googling how to stretch without pulling a muscle. I believe one of the best aging breakthroughs of the last decade is Qualia Senolytic, and here's why. It's designed to help your body naturally eliminate something called senescent cells, also known as zombie cells. These are the ones that just hang around after they've stopped doing their job, draining your energy and making you feel, well, old. Think joint discomfort, sluggish recovery, low energy, the whole deal. Qualia Senolytic is a groundbreaking supplement made with 9 plant-based nutrients, and you only take it 2 days a month. That's it. Since I started taking it, I felt more energized, quicker to recover from workouts, and honestly, just more like me again. Plus, Qualia's breakthrough formulation is vegan, non-GMO, and tested by leading scientists. Experience the science of feeling younger. Go to qualialife.com/Midas for up to 50% off your purchase and use code Midas for an additional 15%. That's QUALIA life.com/Midas, MEIDAS, for that extra 15% off. Your older self will thank you. And thanks to Qualia for sponsoring this episode.
Look, starting a new business can be intimidating. I get it. MeidasTouch Network was not built overnight. You need the tools to help you engage in the day-to-day tasks, the growth. And so it's why we use Shopify. It made things easy for us. And I think you should use Shopify too. So Shopify is a commerce platform. It is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the United States. From household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands like the MeidasTouch Network. Get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store to match your brand style, accelerate your content creation. Shopify is packed with helpful AI tools that write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography. Get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you, even if you don't. Easily create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling to the MeidasTouch Network. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert. And with its world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond, you can count on Shopify. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. So turn your big business idea into boom, boom, boom with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Midas. Go to shopify.com/Midas. One more time. That's shopify.com/Midas.
Let's go. Shout out to our sponsors. Links in description of both the YouTube and the audio. Shout out Qualia. Shout out Shopify. Use the links. Use the codes. If there's an exit survey, let them know we sent you. Benji, your haircut from there to what I just, night and day, big bro. Night and day. Looking sharp, my man.
Thanks, Jordy. I want to share this montage that Nicole Wallace, our friend, created about all of the things that Donald Trump has claimed are hoaxes involving himself, which turn out to be not hoaxes. They're actually things that he's actually involved in. But this is what he does. The Epstein one, because from the outset he said was real, makes it a little more difficult for him to now say it's a hoax, because he was the main, he was the main Epstein. He's like the main
and everyone
person,
around him, Don Jr., Charlie Kirk, the whole administration, Bongino, Kash Patel, like they were all the Epstein people. They were the ones who were pushing all this stuff. And then he goes, oh no, it started by Democrats. It started by Comey. It started by this person, by that. It's like, okay, bro.
And then he fires the lead prosecutor, Comey's daughter, Maureen Comey. Anyway,
screams innocence.
Absolutely screams innocence. All right, let me show you this this montage that Nicole put together.
So Obama's talking about all of this with the global warming and that, and a lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax. They didn't know what to say, so they made up the whole Russia hoax. Now it's turning out that the hoax is turned around. A brilliant jurist, a man that did nothing wrong, a man that was caught up in a hoax that was set up by the Democrats. I think we had a tremendous week with the hoax, the great hoax. They call it the impeachment hoax. Now the Democrats are politicizing the coronavirus. You know that, right? Coronavirus. Think of it. And this is their new hoax. There is nobody that feels more strongly about our soldiers, our wounded warriors, our soldiers that died in war than I do. It's a hoax. With this unhinged insurrection hoax that we're all going through now, but with this insurrection hoax that they're doing, but the insurrection hoax, the radical Democrats are putting our country into a two-tiered system of justice because the public understands it's a hoax, it's a scam, it's a political witch hunt. I call it the Epstein hoax. Takes a lot of time and effort.
One of these things is different than the other. While he's employed that strategy of crying hoax to create a political effect in the past, this time it doesn't appear to be working.
Ben, you're muted.
Am I still muted?
You're good now.
Good now, big bro.
That was so weird. I didn't even touch the mute button. A mute hoax. That was the mute hoax right there. The great mute hoax of 2025. I don't even understand how any of that worked in the past. How one of the fundamental things, I guess, not being in the Trump MAGA cult and not like watching a lot of cable news or not like whatever. Like I fundamentally he's the stupidest person. Like I watch the biggest idiot right there, who's clearly a criminal, who's clearly a sexual abuser, who's clearly a bankrupter, who's lying about everything. And I can't even understand, and this may be my frustration and the existential reason for my existence. I can't even understand how anybody looks at that, no matter, and goes, raises some good points. It's crazy. We're literally watching a crazy person. We'll show you in a little bit on the show. He came up with a story this week when he was in Pittsburgh that his uncle teaches the Unabomber at MIT. That didn't even happen. Who even makes shit up who makes things up like that? The Hannibal Lecter. Have the Hannibal Lecter, the late great Hannibal Lecter, my friend? I'm like, what the hell are we even talking about? What is this?
And I would wish that, his supporters who know that he's so obviously bullshitting about the Epstein stuff, I would wish that they would be able to say, oh, maybe all those other things that he said are hoaxes, just like he's saying this hoax. Maybe he was lying to me then as well. But don't worry, guys. I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. But this definitely seems to be breaking through. That was a great montage by Nicole Wallace. By the way, you may have, if you're listening during the break, we're going to be on the show this weekend, Saturday, 4 p.m. They're going to play our episode with her on MSNBC. So definitely check it out. Set your DVRs. That's exciting. So definitely check that out. But yeah, come on. Everything's such an obvious cover up with him. And this is the most defensive that I've seen him be yet.
So then you got to have the propaganda network, state regime media, Fox, which is worse than even what Kim Jong-un's got in North Korea or Putin's got. So they bring on this lawyer, John Yoo, And John Yoo, he's dressed up. He sounds like a very serious guy. I think that we need to be focusing on the autopen, Biden's autopen. That's the real scandal. I'm like watching this. I'm like, these are crazy humans. What do you mean the autopen? Every former president, Donald Trump, everyone uses an autopen to sign. What's this? What are we talking about? You have Donald Trump covering up his involvement in a sex trafficking ring, or we need to focus on the autopen. Here, play this clip.
Well, if you care about the Constitution and the rule of law, Trump is right. The autopen is way more serious than Jeffrey Epstein, because you could have a series of aides here who seized the power of the presidency and used it for their own purposes. You can't have an aide exercising the constitutional power of pardon or the decision not to prosecute people. And so they could have committed forgery. They could have committed fraud. I expect the Justice Department has already opened an investigation, and they just don't want to say. So they're
investigation into what? What are you even talking about? What are these crazy humans? Like, that's how I watch. I'm like, what are these people saying?
It's just complete, like when you're looking at that, it's complete fan fiction when you turn on that channel at times. Oh, not at times, when you turn on that channel, because it's complete lunacy, Ben. You're so right.
It's alternate reality. It's completely designed to just distract. And I don't always buy into the belief that, oh, this is a distraction for that. This is a distraction for that. People are always telling me anytime there's a news story, oh, he bombed Iran because he wanted to get the heat off this. Oh, but he did that because he wanted to get the heat off this. And sometimes it's true. This time it's definitely true. Okay. Like, this is like the most obvious attempt. He's trying to do the auto pen scandal. Everything that comes out now with Trump is just, you have to realize this Epstein thing is really the thing that he has been terrified of. This is like the chickens coming home to roost after decades and decades and decades. The stuff that he never wanted to see surfaced, the things that he wanted to bury in the past, along with Jeffrey Epstein, I guess, they are coming home right now. And now he is paying the price.
So we've been seeing the discoloration on Donald Trump's hand. He wears this makeup all over his hand, and we've seen his ankles kind of swell up and balloon. And see the diet. I'm not sure the Diet Coke is totally helpful given this condition. But now, after being called out, and we all see it. Caroline Levitt, Trump's propaganda, says he's diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency following leg swelling. But the way they frame it is, this is just what happens when you shake so many hands and you take aspirin for all those hearty handshakes. That's all this is. So first, state regime media, Fox, they bring on this guest who he goes, I've shaken this man's hand. That's definitely what caused it. Here, play it.
That's not serious. It's completely benign. It's cosmetic, and it's expected from a man in his late 70s who's standing on his feet all the time. And to your point about shaking hands, her point about shaking hands, Caroline Levitt says, look, he's on an aspirin. He shakes a lot of hands. I've shaken the man's hand. He gives a very vigorous handshake.
I'm a doctor. I'm Dr. Mark Siegel. I've shaken the man's hand. That man gives a vigorous handshake. That's my diagnosis, is vigorous handshake-itis. You go and you look at Trump's medical report, and it's like his health is clearly evidenced. I swear to you, it says this, by winning all of the golf championships regularly. That's literally in the ridiculous medical thing that he released. By the way, where are those files from Butler, Pennsylvania, regarding the incident that took place there? Although those never got released. So then you have Caroline Levitt. I'll show you how she talks about it during the press conference today. She's just like, it's from lots of handshakes and aspirin. Here's what she says. Let's play it.
On another note, I know that many in the media have been speculating about bruising on the president's hand and also swelling in the president's legs. So in the effort of transparency, the president wanted me to share a note from his physician with all of you today. In recent weeks, President Trump noted mild swelling in his lower legs. In keeping with routine medical care and out of an abundance of caution, this concern was thoroughly evaluated by the White House medical unit. The president underwent a comprehensive examination, including diagnostic vascular studies. Bilateral lower extremity venous Doppler ultrasounds were performed and revealed chronic venous insufficiency, a benign and common condition, particularly in individuals over the age of 70. Importantly, there was no evidence of deep vein thrombosis or arterial disease. Laboratory testing included a complete blood count, comprehensive metabolic panel, coagulation profile, D-dimer, B-type natriuretic peptide, and cardiac biomarkers. All results were within normal limits. An echocardiogram was also performed and confirmed normal cardiac structure and function. No signs of heart failure, renal impairment, or systemic illness were identified. Additionally, recent photos of the president have shown minor bruising on the back of his hand. This is consistent with minor soft tissue irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin, which is taken as part of a standard cardiovascular prevention regimen. This is a well-known and benign side effect of aspirin therapy. And the president remains in excellent health, which I think all of you witness on a daily basis here. So the president wanted me to share that note with all of you. I'm happy to take further questions.
You just get the sense too when you're I mean, like what in the Kim Jong-un North Korea are we watching here? I mean, we have eyes. This is some serious stuff that they're trying to just conceal. And you can that's why when like he released these bizarro medical reports, you know, pre-election and when he was president, you really had to dig in and you really had to question, is this legitimate? Because of just how like inflated they make this stuff. The guy's in excellent health. The guy's severely overweight. Like, let's not like, why are we cuddling this disgusting individual? It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah. And speaking of inflated, this wouldn't have come out if we didn't see Donald Trump's inflated ankles at the FIFA game and people speaking about it. Like, Ben, I know you did multiple videos where you highlighted that. I don't think I saw that on the news once until these questions were asked. I think the attention that was brought on those photos finally caused somebody in the press to ask about this, and they were kind of forced to answer. And you know, you have to look through this also. Is this a distraction from the other stuff? Well, we're not going to stop talking about the Epstein stuff. So good luck. But what I think this is representative of is yet another cover up. I mean, and if you look at the condition, she says it quickly, and she says it in the middle of all that other bullshit that she says, where she talks about handshakes and aspirin and great health and da. She's still doing the Kim Jong-un propaganda stuff, Jordy. But she said in there that he has chronic venous insufficiency. And if you look up what that is, it's a condition where veins have trouble sending blood from the legs back to the heart, which is often due to damaged valves, which could lead to blood pooling in the legs, causing various symptoms and complications. It's a non-fatal condition, but it's a condition, if not treated properly, can lead to deadly consequences. And if you look at the stages, a chronic phase, which is what they said Donald Trump has, means that he is at least stage 3. And with Donald Trump's condition, it's probably, you know, even greater than that, because I could read to you right now. Stage 3 is swelling is present, often accompanied by varicose veins. She said he's chronic. That means he's at least stage 3. Stage 4 is skin changes occur, including alterations in color, hyperpigmentation, or texture. And then it has a bunch of medical phrases after that. And we see that in his hands. We see that on his body, and we see him trying to cover it up. Stage 5 says a healed venous ulcer is present. And so we could see just by looking at Donald Trump that he's at least stage 3, maybe stage 4 on this thing, which means that it didn't just pop up, and which leads you to believe, you know, what else are they hiding in these reports? And they were clearly felt the need to get this out, maybe as an attempt to distract from the Epstein stuff, but also because they were kind of cornered the same way they're cornered with the Epstein story. They were cornered with these photos of Donald Trump, which are quite the image to look at for audio listeners. When you see, I mean, his ankles are the size of, I don't even know, watermelons, like these things. And at a certain point, they had nothing else but to come out with something, and that's what they came up with. You just wonder, what else is Donald Trump hiding about his health? As Ben said, we still haven't seen the reports from Butler. We still, every time we get Donald Trump's reports, it reads like a Kim Jong-un, this is the greatest human who's going to live to 300 years old sort of thing. And so when you don't have the facts, you can only speculate, but the facts are coming out slowly but surely.
Right. So you have Donald Trump. He then goes to Pittsburgh, where he gives this speech where he says that he's brought in, 15 to 17 trillion dollars from his trip in the Middle East, again, which is a total lie. The entire GDP of the United Arab Emirates is like $450 billion. The entire GDP of Qatar is $150 billion. So he just makes up stories like that. And by the way, I think I should mention this here also. Do you notice how people aren't even talking about the flash flood in Texas anymore, and the fact that that FEMA didn't have their urban search and rescue team activated in 72 hours. And the fact that it was a 4-minute walk for the young girls who lost their lives. They could have went up to God Mountain is what it's called. It's called God Mountain, and been able to evacuate, or the fact that the key vacancies were there. How about the fact that there are still so many people missing? Still to this day, there are so many people missing. I mean, it is horrifying. So they're not talking about that anymore. But Donald Trump decides to bring up the fact that his uncle was a professor at MIT, and like no one asked him a question like, "Hey, Donald, we've been hearing that Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber," he was talking about Ted Kaczynski, right? "We've been hearing that Ted Kaczynski may have been in your uncle's class. Can you comment on that?" I mean, he's there ostensibly to lie about the disastrous budget bill and lie about all the money that's being brought into Pennsylvania, which it's not. That was the pretext, I think, of this trip, among other things. But then on his own, he starts just bringing up that the Unabomber was in his uncle's class, and his uncle was a professor at MIT, but the Unabomber didn't even go to MIT, couldn't have gone to MIT during that era. But like, what's going on here? I mean, why? And again, if you have people in your family, or people who have dementia, they do stuff like this. I'm not saying Trump does. I'm just saying this is the type of thing that someone does, like this. Here, you play this clip of Donald Trump saying that.
Permits, and I have to brag just for a second, because when I first heard about AI, it's not my thing. Although my uncle was at MIT, one of the great professors, 51 years, whatever. He was the longest serving professor in the history of MIT, 3 degrees in nuclear, chemical, and math. That's a smart man. Kaczynski was one of his students. Do you know who Kaczynski was? There's very little difference between a madman and a genius. But Kaczynski, I said, "What kind of a student was he, Uncle John, Dr. John Trump?" He said, "What kind of a student?" And he said, "Seriously good." He said he'd go around correcting everybody, but it didn't work out too well for him. Didn't work out too well, but it's interesting in life. But I will.
Okay, now, first off, what does that have to do with AI? Number one, what does his uncle's role at MIT have anything to do with that? And then on his own, he's bringing up the Unabomber, who was not in his uncle's class, couldn't have been based on the time frame, nor did Kaczynski. Went to Harvard and went to University of Michigan. What kind of story? What kind of deranged situation is this? And I know that's kind of one of those things also, Brett and Jordy, that, I'll show you when we get back, what, a reporter asks about it. But it's one of those things too, that like, when we find out 18 months from now that there was issues, right? And everyone's like, "Oh my God, this was we didn't see it coming." I'm like, the guy was in Pennsylvania talking about Ted Kaczynski being in it. What are you talking about? Like he was campaigning and talking about getting pissed on by hookers and that he doesn't like it. Like that wasn't like a thing. He said that because that couldn't have happened because I don't like it. Like, did you hear him? He was in front of young Republicans saying that it's courageous locker room talk to brag about sexually assaulting. He's saying it. He's
Jake Tapper. We're doing you a favor here, buddy. Start writing that book.
Got your next book, bud.
Get a jump start.
All right, let's take our last quick break of the show. When we come back, I want to talk about some other issues that corporate news is not talking about at all. I want to talk about that meeting earlier this week between Donald Trump and Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, which had this big announcement. Oh, Trump's going to help Ukraine. Nah, he's just doing Putin's bidding. He literally is executing on Putin's plan. Like, wake up, stop reporting on what he says. Watch what he's actually doing. I want to talk about that. I want to show you these 3 clips that I think perfectly piece together just what a sellout the Republican Party is. You're not going to want to miss that and more. Let's take our last quick break of the show, but I want to remind everybody, become a member now if you can. Gift as many people as you can memberships. It helps our network and our YouTube channel grow. We're an independent media network. It goes a long way, and the memberships have been super, super helpful. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Right now, the headlines are chock full of data breaches and regulatory rollbacks, making us all vulnerable. But you could do something about it. Delete Me is here to make it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online. As someone with a big digital footprint, I take my privacy very seriously. I've gotten those emails, your data's been breached more times than I could count. It's unsettling to think that data brokers can scoop up my info and sell it to anyone. That's why I use Delete Me. Delete Me does all the hard work of wiping your personal info from hundreds of data broker sites. You just tell them what you want removed and their experts handle the rest. Then you get regular reports showing what they found and deleted. It isn't just a one-time service. Delete Me is always working for you, constantly monitoring and removing the personal information you don't want on the internet. I'm always blown away by how much it catches when it sends me my reports. It's privacy made easy. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/Midas and use promo code Midas at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/Midas and enter code Midas. That's MEIDAS. That's joindeleteme.com/Midas, code Midas.
This episode of the Midas Touch Podcast is brought to you by Wild Grain. Wild Grain is the first bake from frozen subscription box for artisanal breads, pastries, and pastas. Wild Grain's boxes are fully customizable to your taste and dietary restrictions, in addition to their classic variety box. They recently launched a new gluten-free box and a plant-based box that is 100% vegan. Best of all, they take the hassle out of baking, since all items bake from frozen in 25 minutes or less with no mess or cleanup. Now, my personal experience with Wild Grain has been incredible. I wouldn't steer you wrong. It's super convenient and all the products are high quality and super fresh. I cannot say enough good things about Wild Grain, and I know that you're going to love them as much as I do. Are you ready to bring all your favorite carbs right to your doorstep? Be sure to check out Wild Grain so you can begin building your own box for artisanal breads, pastas, and pastries. For a limited time, Wild Grain is offering our listeners $30 off the first box, plus free croissants in every box when you go to wildgrain.com/Midas to start your subscription. Let's go. Shout out to our sponsors. Links in description of both the YouTube and the audio. Click the links, use the codes, let them know we sent you off. There's an exit survey. Benji, where to next?
I want to show you what's not being reported on in American media, and I think it's something that's so important. First, I want to show you what Donald Trump said on the tarmac when he was asked this week about Patriot missiles going to Ukraine. Remember, that was the big announcement that Donald Trump's going to let the Patriot missiles go to Ukraine. Well, let's be clear. 30 Patriot missiles were supposed to go to Ukraine. Congress appropriated the money for it under the Biden administration. Biden promised it to Ukraine. Congress promised it to Ukraine. And then the Trump regime withheld the things that they were supposed to. So then they limited it to like 17 or 16 Patriot missiles. Like they said it was going to be less. But then they also kind of confused and muddled the situation. Is that going to be existing ones? Is it already on the way? Are you going to force NATO to buy it from the United States? There's no clarity like what the policy is, but I'll show you what Donald Trump said on the tarmac. He said that the first Patriot missiles for Ukraine are already being delivered, he says, and he says Germany has it, Germany's exchanging it, and Germany's already done it. So first, let me show you what Donald Trump said. Here, play this clip.
They're already being shipped. From what countries? Coming in from Germany and then replaced by Germany, and in all cases, the United States gets paid back in full. Have you started? What's happening, as you know, is the European Union, if you look, mostly European unions, but let's put it in the form of NATO. It's very similar. But NATO is going to pay us back for everything. In some cases, we're going to be paid back by countries of the European Union.
So in other words, in order to get this deal done, they had to convince Donald Trump and try to make it transactional, that it would have to be Europe buying it from the United States and giving it to Ukraine. But you heard Donald Trump say that Germany's already picked it up, right? You heard him say that, and is giving it to Ukraine. Now, our corporate news here in the United States will run with that headline, right? Like that the headline becomes it's being sent to Ukraine. the reality is very different. So we at the Midas Touch Network watch German news because I want to hear what they're saying in Germany. So I did a take on this as well. And it's part of a series of videos I do where I focus on international news. Here's what the German defense minister Pistorius had to say. He showed up into the United States to say, okay, let's get these missiles. Let's go. All right. So he shows up and he has to meet with Pete Hegseth, former Fox host, now Secretary of Defense. We made this in AI.
Let me just dig it up for a second, Ben, if that's okay.
All right. You dig that up, Brett. But you'll hear the German voice in AI. But we will knock that out. While Brett's digging that up, I want to talk about the State Department is gutting its office combating human sex trafficking. So at the same time, Trump is covering up the Epstein Files. As part of the layoffs to the State Department, about 1,300 positions or so in the State Department being removed. One of the key offices that have been targeted was the Office to Monitor and Combat Trafficking in Persons, known as TIP. For 25 years, the TIP, the TIP office, has worked to combat human sex and labor trafficking around the world. And it releases reports, it works with other countries and how to identify international sex trafficking. And so they're doing that. At the same time that is happening, we learned that the new U.S. assessment in Iran has found that the American strikes, I talked about this a little earlier, but let me repeat it again, only destroyed one of the three facilities. And as you go into the article, it says that Donald Trump was briefed on the plan about how to strike and make sure you knocked out all of the facilities, but it was rejected because it was at odds with, quote, Donald Trump's foreign policy instincts to extract the United States from conflicts abroad and not dig deeper into them, as well as the possibility of a high number of casualties on both sides, one of the current officials and one of the former officials said. And by the way, I'm glad that it was not a high casualty event. I don't really understand what the hell was happening at all, frankly, over there, as things were precipitously escalated, in my view, by the United States and Israel after all of our intelligence showed that Iran was not going to be able to imminently get a nuclear weapon. I would never want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I certainly do not think that the Ayatollah, I think the Ayatollah is a mad person. And, but at the same time, we have experience when it comes to what regime change looks like, what it means to get involved in a war. So what Donald Trump did was engage in a symbolic strike, kind of, just for show, to claim obliteration and then actually weaken the United States' position by allowing Iran to strengthen its relationship with Russia. And Russia gets its Shahid drones from Iran that Russia uses to kill the innocent Ukrainians. One of Russia's most powerful weapons in the war are the drones from Iran. And it also strengthens China's hand purchasing the oil from Iran. So Iran came out of this the big winner. America achieved no geopolitical goals, and America alienated itself further amongst the NATO allies and others. So going back to the German defense minister, here he is. His voice is translated into English by AI. It was originally in German, but listen to what he says. It's a good translation. Let's play it.
The new regulation stipulates that the US will produce the weapons for Ukraine. The European NATO partners will pay for them, including Germany. What kind of scale are we talking about here? Is this about more than the 3 Patriot systems that have been discussed so far?
Today we talked about the full range of possible deliveries from the US. What is clear, and President Trump announced this today, is that the US will not pay for this. Instead, the Europeans will have to do so. But we've known that for quite some time. But I prefer that the United States is involved rather than not, because they simply have production capacities and can deliver systems that we don't have. And that's why this signal is the right one. And what exactly will be worked out in the coming weeks will be developed and determined by working groups that will convene very quickly. This will move quickly And it has to move quickly because Ukraine needs further support, especially in the area of air defense.
Since you mentioned the full range that was discussed, what is actually on your wish list? But are there also other weapon systems you would like to purchase besides Patriots?
We have agreed to remain silent on that until it is clear what results will come out in the next few weeks. But I'm sure you understand that discussing this publicly right now would be the wrong approach. We want to become less predictable in what we do and not discuss everything in public forums.
Okay, now the terms of the deal to even get the Patriot missiles will not be done for the next few weeks, yet alone the missiles themselves. Now, you heard Donald Trump say in the other clip that we played for you the other day that Germany already has them. They're already being given. This is one of my points. The guy just lies about literally everything. So I want to go to this other area too, because I want to talk about the theme is the cover-ups here. So I want to talk about the MAGA Republican cover-ups. We've talked a lot about alligator concentration camps in Florida, other concentration camps that Trump is sending migrants to, how Trump's revoked TPS, the temporary protected status from Cubans and Venezuelans and Haitians and all of these groups that former President Biden protected. So I think these three clips I'm about to show you sums everything up about where the Republican Party is, where Trump is, and the corrosive nature just of this of everything, right here. So a MAGA Republican Congresswoman, Salazar, from South Florida, she's Cuban. Her parents fled Castro. She's one of the big Cubans for Trump supporters. Her district represents one of the largest Cuban populations, if not the largest in the country. And so she also supports something called the Dignity Act that she's authored. And when she was asked during the 2024 campaign about Donald Trump's threats of mass deportation, she would say, Dignity Act, Dignity Act. She goes, I've been promised by Donald Trump. He's only going after the criminals. He supports the Dignity Act. And then after the election, she was asked, hey, they keep on saying mass deportations. So are you worried that they're going to target people who are not criminals, people who have been living here for a long time? Are you worried? So Congressman Salazar hears on PBS, which, by the way, is part of the rescission package that MAGA Republicans want to destroy and defund PBS. And here you had a great PBS reporter asking MAGA Republican, the Cuban Congresswoman Salazar, basic questions. You sure? You sure about that? You sure about that? Watch what she says then, back on November 11th. Play this clip.
Not all 200,000 undocumented in your community. Is that what you're saying?
I am sure that that the Trump administration is not going to be targeting those people who have been here for more than 5 years, that have American kids, that don't have criminal records, that have been working in the economy and paying taxes. I am sure that they're going to hone in on the criminals who arrived less than 4 years ago. Because I wrote the Dignity Act, and I am the first one who understands that you have to give some type of dignity to those who have been here for more than 5 years, people who have roots in the country, not people who are coming to commit crimes.
If I can just clarify from you, have you received those kinds of details from anyone in a potential Trump administration? Because so far what we've heard is a proposal for mass deportations. You have about 30 seconds left. Have you gotten those assurances?
Mass deportation to those who are committing crimes who have been here for less than 5 years. You understand that you have millions of undocumented who are contributing with the economy and are helping our country to be a better one.
Okay, well, that didn't happen. Okay, so now we're in July 17th. And so she's interviewed. There's concentration camps now. Cubans, Venezuelans, Haitians, Mexicans are being targeted. Her people, Cubans, right, are being targeted right now. They're being sent back to Cuba. They're being sent back to the authoritarian regimes that they fled. Their lives are in jeopardy. Families are being ripped apart. Okay, so are you going to acknowledge that he lied to you, or are you just going to pretend that it didn't happen? Here's what she says July 17th. Let's play it.
There's no way we can grow as a country and continue being the #1 economy in the world if we don't have hands. Period. So let's be intelligent. Let's just bring them out of the shadows, make them pay, something that they're not paying right now. make them pay a fine, no federal programs, and they can go home for Christmas and they can buy a home. And with the BBB, the economy is going to burst, just like it happened in 2019. I go back to the president. The president is the guy who can make this happen. There is no other president like Trump. Look what he did with Iran. Look what he did with Venezuela, with China. So I have no doubt, I have faith that he could be for immigration what Lincoln was for slavery and Reagan was for communism. Just watch him.
Okay, well, we'll see how it goes. I hope that you'll come back and tell us how this moves along. As you mentioned, it is newly introduced.
What has he done for, excuse me, what has he done for Venezuela? Didn't they threaten to invade Puerto Rico? I know our corporate news doesn't talk about that. What has he done for China? Strengthen them? Their GDP is growing at like 6%. They're like the most popular and powerful country in the world right now that everyone wants to do deals. They look like a more stable force compared to the United States. What weaken us to China? What have we done with Iran? Strengthened Iran? I mean, what in the world are we in the Kim Jong-un are we talking about? And then she's like, he'll be like Lincoln. He'll be like Reagan. He's sending your people to concentration camps. And she's just using the same line about the Dignity Act that she used in November, as though a time period hasn't passed where he's revoked the temporary protected status of her people and is literally killing them. Like, what are we talking about here? So surely if Donald Trump is a supporter of the Cuban people and Salazar, I at least assume that he's read the Dignity Act, that he's aware of this legislation that she was talking about back in November and before the election, and then pretending that she's just introducing it now once again. I'm sure, right, that he's read the thing and they're taking it seriously. Caroline, tell us.
First on Congress, Congresswoman Salazar introduced legislation that would give some illegal immigrants in the country a path to citizenship. 10 Republicans signed on to what she's calling the Dignity Act. I'm curious what the White House's position is on the legislation and if the president would veto this bill if it made it to its desk.
From my understanding, the White House nor the president has actually read through this legislation. We've been focused on, of course, the One Big Beautiful Bill, which passed, which is another historic accomplishment of this president in record time. The Genius Act this week, the rescissions package, that's been the focus of the White House. But the president has made it very clear he will not support amnesty for illegal aliens in any way.
And I want to give you a chance to respond.
He hasn't even read the Dignity Act, and they have no clue what it is. No, I mean, this is where, for me, it's just a little bit baffling to me. So if you're like Salazar or you're a Cuban in her district, and you go, and because you hear this all the time in Little Havana, you know what? I don't like his policies on immigration, but when it comes to some of the other stuff, I think I identify more with him. Let me try to sort through this with you. So Biden supported your temporary protected status that allowed you to live thriving lives with you and your family members here, and provided a potential pathway to citizenship for family members and kept families together on the one hand. I'm just trying to understand this. On the other hand, Donald Trump is sending you back to the authoritarian regime your parents and grandparents fled in Cuba, has revoked your temporary protected status, is throwing your people into concentration camps where they can't even access lawyers. But there are all these other issues that are out there. But you're gonna introduce the Dignity Act, and so I guess it's all good. I guess it's all good. Doesn't those three clips, Brett and Jordy, just kind of sum it up? And I watch this and I'm like, what am I watching there? He hates you, Salazar. He hates your people. It's not, he hates the Cubans. He hates the Mexicans. He hates the Venezolans. You don't see it. Like, you don't see it.
And for someone like that to come to power, essentially, calling somebody like a President Biden, like a communist, comparing them to dictators who the people in her community have fled. And then when Donald Trump is actually doing the things that the dictators in these countries have done, she turns a blind eye to it and tries to act like it's all good. Like, it's just throwing your people under the bus in the most cynical and worst way. It's such a disgrace. It's so disgusting to watch. And I wish the people at least would rise up and oust these people from office office and say, you know what, enough is enough. I'm not going to take this treatment. I'm not going to take this gaslighting anymore. But that force of gaslighting is so incredibly powerful. And that's why they have these networks. That's why there is, Fox that's pumping that stuff. That's why she's going on to Fox. That's why the cover-ups always end up going through Fox, because they package it up as news. They package it up as these are the facts. These are the trustworthy voices. This is the news set. These are the chyrons. This is news you could trust. We got Fox Business. Here are the stocks. Here are the this. And they delude the people into believing that what they are watching is the real deal, when it's just to cover for, historically Republicans, but specifically right now, Donald Trump and everything that Donald Trump wants to hide from the public, or try to, push forward Donald Trump's agenda and this kind of Project 2025 agenda that we've been seeing put into motion every single day.
And that's why it's just so weak what you see out of these, Republican politicians right now as well. Unless you don't pledge 1,000% of your loyalty behind Donald Trump, you're not a Republican. Like, you're just not a Republican in 2025. Your people be damned. You see Salazar right there talking about, and she's like, what are you genuinely? What are you saying? Because he's done everything. Donald Trump has done everything opposite of what you're trying to, speak into reality. It's just never going to happen. Please just open your eyes. It's insane.
I couldn't agree more with you, Jordy. And we'll leave it at that for this episode of the MeidasTouch Podcast. We covered a lot of topics indeed. Make sure you keep checking the MeidasTouch YouTube channel every 90 minutes or so for the latest updated content. Check out MeidasPlus.com as well for our Substack. I'm sure many of you have been seeing me sitting on this chair now for hours at a time. I've been cleared by my doctor that I could sit for significant periods of time, which is good, which means next week we're going to do our Patreon.
Doc cleared you for Patreon.
So next Thursday, I want to give people enough time to prepare for it. After our show next Thursday, we're going to hold a meeting and we'll do a State of the Midas Touch address. You can ask us questions on Patreon. So if you go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch and you want to watch that address and ask us questions, it's usually a smaller, more intimate environment, but you definitely want to make sure you subscribe now. If it gets too big, we may have to figure out what we do with it with all the people in the Zoom. So make sure you subscribe right now if you can to patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Brett, why don't we just show also the Nicole Wallace teaser one more time? They do a good job. I like the way they prepare that. So this weekend, we're going to be featured with Nicole Wallace on Saturday. Let's just play that trailer one more time quickly.
Saturday, a special edition of The Best People. Nicole Wallace is joined by the hosts of the MeidasTouch Podcast for a compelling conversation.
Speaking truthfully on these issues, to me, that's the Midas way.
Saturday at 4 on MSNBC.
By the way, if you saw how crooked I was there did you notice that I was, because I literally couldn't sit. That's why
I was at the height of your back pain too. And I think we started off that interview.
Cover it in the conversation there as well.
I said, Nicole, Ben's hopped up on, whatever he needs right now to get through this interview. So I'm warning you, this could get into some interesting territory. So you're not going to want to miss it. Make sure you check it out. Set your DVRs Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern time on MSNBC. It's going to be fun.
Oh, and reminder, become a member of the YouTube channel if you can. You'll see a little button there about join. You can gift memberships to as many people as you can as well. It's just one of the ways to help this independent media network grow. It unlocks emojis for people and yourself. It unlocks exclusive bonus content like the special podcast I do once a week with Ron Filipkowski, and it just helps this independent media network grow, and it's been really helpful for our growth. So if you could become a member now, great. And you can give memberships for people as well. Subscribe on audio, leave a 5-star review on audio, stop those Joe Rogan trolls from giving us 1-star reviews, give us a 5-star review if you like the program. That goes a long way to help. And look, no matter what, just tell people about the MeidasTouch Network. Word of mouth is key, and the more people that know about this network could access the news that they're not getting elsewhere, I think it's been really helpful to creating a very informed country and an informed world. I see all of our international supporters out there, from the Maple Midas to the Midas Down Under in Australia, to the Midas supporters in Mexico, Central America, South America, from the UK and Europe to all of our supporters in Africa and in Asia. We say thank you, thank you, thank you. And we'll see you next time on the Midas Touch podcast. Jordy, take it away.
Shout out to the Midas Mighty. Can't get enough Midas? Check out the Midas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.